Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to 18.2 launch week and today's webinar, What's New in 18.2 for WinForms, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall and DevExpress technical evangelist Paul Usher. We have officially released 18.2, as you may know. All you have to do is click the My Downloads link and you will see the latest version, 18.2.3. In this session, Paul and Julian will explore our newest WinForms components and feature set to ship as part of 18.2. This session is being recorded and it will be made available on our DevExpress YouTube channel later today, and we will send the link to the recording in a follow-up email. We will also do a live Q&A at the end of this presentation. Just type your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel at any time throughout the broadcast. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Julian and Paul.
Thank you very much, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. Julian, good morning.
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to everybody out there listening in, or watching, I should say. WinForms version 18.2, hey?
Watching and listening. Now, a couple of things. I apologize if you're seeing strange artifacts on my screen. GoToWebinar is being GoToWebinar. And, of course, Amanda's already said we have released, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, released late last week, and the email announcing it should go out today or maybe even tomorrow. But because you're here, you can actually go and download it before anyone else knows.
But not right now.
Wink, wink. Oh, not right now. Yeah, wait, can start it going, but you know.
In an hour. So the other crazy thing is what's new in version 18.2 WinForms. Full stop.
Indeed. I'm sure our regulars will remember our past What's New webinars. You know, we do one every 6 months, obviously, where we've done WinForms and WPF together as a single webinar. Well, we found over the past couple of times that it's getting really hard to stuff it all in. So this, nearly said year, this version, this release, we're actually going to have separate WinForms and separate WPF webinars. So if you're into thick clients, then I'm afraid you're going to have to watch two.
Oh, that's a shame. Put up with us for 2 hours. So let's talk about what's new, what's enhanced, what's changed for WinForms. I think one of the big things to realize, WinForms is not going anywhere. I mean, Microsoft have invested more and more into it. We're investing into it. So it is not a product that is going to disappear. And you were at a couple of events recently with some updates on that?
Well, exactly. The main thing to realize is Microsoft have announced .NET Core 3, and .NET Core 3 has support for WinForms and WPF. Essentially, they're going to, if you like, retire the .NET framework and instead target .NET Core for various reasons, but .NET Core 3 adds support for WinForms and WPF. WinForms is not going away. It's there, part of that new push that Microsoft have for allowing your applications to, if you like, ship with their own framework. That's the whole one of the points about .NET Core. So brilliant, as we say, but there's going to be a lot of changes.
I was talking to a client here in Australia this week, and interestingly enough, they're moving their development from WPF to WinForms. I was going to say back to WinForms, but to WinForms, which is interesting that companies out there are deciding to stay with the good old solid platform. Not that WPF's not solid, but I'm going to get lots of hate mail now.
The other interesting thing about WinForms is our push for adding DirectX support, just like WPF. So with DirectX support, our grid is much faster at rendering and scrolling and all those good things. So WinForms, you know, through our efforts as well as Microsoft's, is a platform to consider.
So what's new? We can see from this slide, we've got a new control that I'm going to be showing you. We'll be splitting a number of things between Julian and I. Some things, as with every release, are not so much visual, but performance related. And I think Julian will sound like a bit of a broken record about performance. As we step through, the emphasis we put on certain things doesn't mean that we feel other things are less important, but obviously each to their own. What I'm going to do is jump into the demo center. Now, of course, you can find our demos by clicking on Start, typing in Demo, and you jump into the 18.2 Demo Center. I've already launched my WinForms Demo Center. Again, GTW or GoToWebinar tends to wreak havoc with machine speeds and all sorts of things. So if it looks like I've clicked on something and nothing's happening, it's usually because my processor's been stolen. First thing I want to go through is the data grid. And for the data grid, we've got a couple of really nice additions. I'm going to jump down to scroll bar annotations and bookmarks. If you think about your experience inside Visual Studio, then you will recognize what's happening on the scroll bar here. We've implemented the ability to show annotations. Now, they can be worked in things such as cells that have got failed validation, focused or selected record ranges, records that match search results, or record changes and custom data. So in my search box up here, I'm going to type in TRA, and we'll see that I've now got one of 48 matches. If I take off my row errors and my bookmarks for a second, we can see clearly in the elevator for the scroll bar, I can jump to all of those matches. So it's a great visual representation and use for some of that stuff. Other cool things, obviously, being able to jump in and change colors for those annotations and make them custom. So that's really, really nice. The new search mode, which I've sort of showed there, where you can see the results highlighted within the view and the scroll bar. So that's another really nice addition to the grid and makes, I suppose, that visual element of being able to jump through your data set very quickly instead of just trying to use your traditional scroll. The other thing, whilst I'm on the data grid, this feature was introduced into the pivot grid and tree list earlier, in an earlier release. One of the things that's happened is it's now been brought into the grid control. So Excel style filtering. I'm going to click on the filter button, and I get the usual, it knows its date, so it's going to let me choose that. But if I come to values, we're going to see that it will implement custom grouping and automatic grouping for that feature, which is really, really nice. I certainly love the annotations, and I think there's going to be a lot of people being able to implement that in many different ways. Now, I need to get to my corner, so I'm just going to move, go to webinar. Next thing I want to show you is the new control. Now, you think back, Julian, a few versions ago, we introduced something called a tree map, which was a great way of visualizing large volumes of data into different size boxes. And we've got the tree map showing right here. Well, the team have come along and said, we can do yet another way of representing hierarchical data or flat data. Yes, I said it correctly.
Yeah, no, you said it correctly, yeah. I hasten to add to our readers or listeners is that, I don't know, we have problems saying hierarchical.
I definitely have problems saying hierarchical, but there we go, I got it. So this new feature will actually display that style of data in this cool, what we've termed a Sunburst chart. Now you can see here I've got options for different colors. So I've got this one's using the palette colorizer. I could switch that through to the gradient colorizer, which I think gives it an extra element of pop. You can see where possible the information's rendered, and if the elements are too small, you can utilize the tooltip support to do that. You've also got advanced highlighting behaviors, all the built-in color algorithms, and if we look at the interaction demo here, you can see what happens when I click on a particular element, how it is then updating both the grid and also the charts below to do different things. I've got different highlighting modes, so I can say single, I can say path from root, so it's going to limit that data that's coming through based on where I'm clicking. So some nice little pieces there. Now, I know how much you love pie charts, Julian, and I think this is like a pie chart on steroids, really.
I was going to say a three-dimensional pie chart, but it's not really. It's just a tree pie chart. Tree pie? Yes. It's a fascinating way of looking at data which is hierarchical, in a tree form.
Particularly views like this one. Now, I'm a big fan of apps that show me where all my hard drive space has gone, and one of the apps that I use has this particular style in it, and I think it's a great way of showing information in a visual way. Next thing on my hit list is going to be the diagrams changes. Now, the diagram control, I think, is a very, very powerful control and gets used in many different ways by our customers. The updates for version 18.2, there's a couple of things to show you here. The first one is going to be the pan and zoom panel. So I'm just going to come in and activate pan and zoom. And you'll see this little panel sitting over here. So as I scroll around, you can see that I've got the thumbprint or the overview of what's happening on my diagram control, to which I can zoom in or out to show more, and then I can just zoom around with the blue window. Now hopefully...
I hasten to add here that if you feel it's looking a little jagged, then it's because of GoToWebinar. Essentially, it's very smooth when you're looking it in the flesh, as it were. The panning works extremely well as the zooming, obviously.
Now, the next item that I want to present is under connectors. Now, one of the things that happens, we use obviously inbuilt algorithms to find best routes or routes for right angle connectors. So you've got a starting node, you've got an ending node, and sometimes this can end up with this thing sort of happening here where all three nodes come off a parent, and sometimes that can be hard to follow. So what the team have done in this version is actually allow you to split the connector and define the minimum acceptable distance between them. So we can see an example of that in play here on the right-hand side, where clearly they're still coming off this parent node, but it's a lot cleaner and easier to follow. And that's a feature that a lot of our customers have provided feedback for and asked that we implement. So I'm pleased to announce, not pronounce, but announce that that is now in there. With this version, we've also released a view-only mode, which allows you to disable different operations or all operations that can affect the way that the diagram is interacted with itself. So you've got the options of defining which elements, whether you want certain things to be selected. Effectively think of it as a view or read-only mode, which if you're using this inside a workflow tool or other things that you want just that visual representation, provides a really nice function for that. You've now got the ability to also define whether you can select no nodes, whether you want a single item or multiple items when using the mouse. Next thing on my list is the SVG, well, it's the start of SVG. There's a lot happening inside the look and feel part of this release. And we're going to start out by looking at the check edit control. It's a humble little control. We use it in lots of different things to nominate true, false, or even a nullable style of true, false. Here we've got our sample checkbox. I can turn it on and off. In this release, we have now got SVG support with a number of pre-baked items. So that's just standard checkbox, the radio version of it. I can now switch into the SVG options, and you can see there's some really nice out-of-the-box feelings here. Green tick, all the way down to maybe a thumbs up, thumbs down style option. SVG obviously has all the benefits. Julian loves it, the fact that it's scalable, scalable vector graphic. But what I particularly love in this, with this demo, is the fact that I can change these colors so easily to say, I want blue and yellow, or red and green if I wanted to use my country's colors, etc. So that's a really nice addition, I think, to the humble little checkbox.
And just to reiterate, SVG icons and SVG drawings are very important these days because of the multitude of high-resolution screens. Obviously, with this particular webinar, we're at a fairly lowish resolution. We're not doing a 4K broadcast, for example. But in your applications, which may run on small screens, large screens, high DPI, low DPI screens, SVG icons are really, really beneficial because they always look good. You don't have to try and create icons of lots of different resolutions just for your application to run a different variety of screens. SVG just does it all for you. It's magic.
It's brilliant. Should be using it everywhere. SVG for the win. The next thing I want to focus on, using the word focus because it's on screen, the producing Office 2019 style navigation. So here we can see the tab navigation view. Now this is a new Fluent Mail client that the team have put together utilizing a lot of the controls. But you can see here that between focused and other, these are borderless tab headers, and you get that really nice look and feel that Microsoft are introducing into other applications. So you can still do your development as tab pages, but the functionality behind them or the look and feel stays in line with Office 2019. Now, whilst I'm on this page, I want to just highlight the fact that if you're still using the nav bar, you should look to switch over to the accordion control instead, which extends all the capabilities found inside the nav bar control. Sometimes processes like that can feel daunting. So what the team have done is come up with a way that allows you to actually just replace your nav bar with the accordion, and it will preserve any customization settings and paint styles that you have already put inside that control. And to do that is simple as selecting Convert to Accordion Control inside the Smart tag in your Visual Designer. Now the only caveat to that is that the event handler is not converted, so you'll just need to go through and update your event handlers accordingly. But again, a great way to keep migrating those features as you move forward. Whilst I'm on the UI side of things, I'm just going to jump to our What's New page. There's some other cool Office 2019 functionality inside things like the ribbon bar. So you've got the new tab styles, you've got the animation effects, you've got the ability to minimize the ribbon to a single row tab toolbar. It's got support for right-aligned page groups and the ribbon caption bar. So always with our updates, jump into the What's New page, check out the documentation, check out the demos. Sometimes it's just those little niceties that will help your next application or even your current application pop with functionality. PDF viewer. Now for this update, the DirectX rendering, which was first released back in May with 18.1, it went to CTP. This update marks its official release. It's a big deal to implement the DirectX rendering in the PDF viewer with the volume of uses that we know our customer base has. Is a big feature for release. From a visual perspective or from a touchy-feely, let me show you something, there's nothing I can show you, but it is definitely one of those things that, as Julian mentioned earlier, DirectX support is a big, big thing to mention. My second most favorite thing in this release, it was my first until just recently, is to do with the scheduler control. Now, again, I'm going to use the web page here just to emphasize this. With our WinForms scheduler control, you can now have two-way binding with your Google Calendar. It's got to be one of the most requested features when looking at the support center, and it is just phenomenal that with a small amount of work, you can bind your calendar control and have it talking to direction to Google. There's a great little demonstration or tutorial on how to do that inside the documentation, and there's a link from the What's New page. Now there are some limitations with this, and the document goes through and talks about what those limitations are, and it also steps through exactly how to implement that inside your application, what you need to buy and what API or NuGet packages you need to bring in, and all the processes to bring that through. But it's been asked for and it's been delivered. So I'd love to hear how people are utilizing that particular feature, which is really nice. I've covered the ribbon bars and dock UI, and so now I want to go on and talk a little bit more about SVG. I'll launch the Outlook Inspired app so I can show you a couple of things. We've now shipped a new skin, which is Office 2019 Colorful. Once it comes up, I will actually demonstrate that in its fullness for you. Now, there's also some new SVG palettes inside this release. So we're very heavily focused on that SVG view. Switch to the view menu, and I've got this Office 2019 Colorful. And so from here, I can look through. I'm on the default one at the moment. Let's drop that out so you can see the names. And if I want to just click and implement the forest view, and you'll see that all the assets, including the selector, have now turned to a forest theme. Do that with plum, and we're going to see that plum color come through. So that's really nice Office 2019 styled support. In addition, so we've got 7 new SVG palettes. Inside the Bezier skin, we've got high contrast white, high contrast black. We've got the SVG versions now for VS Light, Dark, and Blue. And we also have 2 new DevExpress palettes, 20 and 20 Gold. Now, Julian, why are we calling them 20?
Well, it's because this month, 20 years ago, DevExpress was founded. Yes, sometime this month. I'm not actually sure of the actual day this month, but in November 1998, I wasn't actually part of DevExpress then. DevExpress was founded. And so this is our 20th anniversary, our 20th birthday.
And for a company in such an industry, I think it's a huge milestone, and it's a great time to be part of the organization. I mean, yep. I think back to what I was doing in 1998.
Well, you were still in your cot, weren't you?
Stop it. my youngest son was born that year, so he's 20. There we go. So yes. 98 was a good year. Let's jump in and now take a look at 2 more really cool aspects. Advanced Design Time Image Picker. Now, typically, if I'm working inside my visual designer and I want to choose an image, I'd come through here, invoke the pop-up dialog, select from my vector images, because that's what we're all about, and then hit OK, and that would populate that, which is fine. That's the way we've done it for forever. However, what's really, really cool is now at a top level, so I'm just waiting for my smart tag to appear on my form, I can now invoke an image picker straight from here. And we're going to see that we've got this panel. So I can say, I want save icons. Here's my option of save icons. And I can literally just drag and drop onto the required element. Do a new panel. And you can see how easy that is. It is mind-blowingly simple. And the productivity gains from that alone, I think, is well worth everybody upgrading to this new release.
Absolutely. First time I saw this, I was dead impressed, because you know what it's like. You have a ribbon, you have a ton of buttons and things. You have to set every single icon. To go through the old way, yes, it worked, but it took a long time. This is like, wow, yeah. Why did we do this in the first place?
Because then we'd have nothing to talk about this release.
Indeed.
Okay, now because my screen size got changed earlier, I'm now struggling to find my demo, but I want the automatic form layout control. And we'll just wait for that to launch, because the next thing is what I now consider the most exciting update to this release. As I said before, when I saw the Google's calendar sync, I was like, yay, this is awesome. And then I was talking to one of the team and he said, Paul, you wait till you see this particular feature. And yeah, it is definitely one of the most important. Now, if you're a web developer, this is going to be a duh, you finally caught up moment. From a WinForms perspective, it is phenomenal. You no longer need to hunt for your specific hues or colors when you're building an existing application theme. You previously were able to set custom background or foregrounds for UI elements, but of course the problem with that was then trying to match that in with the theme you'd selected or your company branding, and it could get really messy, really tricky. So what's happened is we've released a thing called Skin Colors, which is a set of predefined colors that match the current skin and or skin palette. Now it's got full support for common controls, buttons, grid column headers, tabs, panels, group controls, grid controls, layout, etc., tree list, the list goes on. But what do I mean by that? Well, on the right hand side we can see that I've got these skin options and there's 5 of them: danger primary, question, success, and warning. Typical thing would be danger is delete, success is save, and in this example, warning is this out of stock. So what happens if I then change this? Now let's take a look on the left-hand side. I've got this Ford Edge, which is out of stock, and my Nissan is in stock because it's in green. But I'm going to come along and I'm going to change my warning color to that, and we can see straight away all of the elements, including where it gets used elsewhere, which is a gradient of that primary color, is updated, which makes updating my application, giving it that real ping, pizzazz, has just become so much easier. Let me do the same for my success color. I want my success color to be, I don't know, let's go bright yellow, I suppose. We can see the save button's changed, and so has the use of that color hue inside that grid control. Now, as I said, if you're a web developer, especially if you're using some of the frameworks, then it's what we've had, it's what we've used. But from a WinForms perspective, it is absolutely mind-blowing. And you're just going to be able to make your applications really sizzle with that functionality. Thoughts, Julian?
Sorry. Brilliant. No. I'm a great fan of it, I must admit. Definitely.
Now, there's been a lot of other work with our vector image gallery. We've now improved the gallery by adding new graphics, advanced filtering, and search capabilities, so you can get to different elements a lot easier, a lot quicker. We've continued to extend the use of vector graphics across the entire range of controls in WinForms, and replaced pre-existing bitmap icons in editors, dialogues, and forms. You can now also update specific vector-based icons for the backstage view panel, the recent control items. You're just going to see the SVG stuff moving through on all of that. And there's also a bunch of miscellaneous enhancements when it comes to the skins and styling. There's a new Fluent view for the calendar control, so it makes supporting both acrylic and reveal highlighting effects, allowing you to basically mirror the appearance of the Windows 10 calculator, which is really, really cool. Now, Julian, I think what I'm going to do is switch over to you now, and you can take us through some other controls.
Okay, let's just grab control of the screen and show my screen, and you should all see the WinForms demos page right now. As Paul just talked about that, let's just show you what that calendar control looks like with the Fluent view. So here it is. Can you see the that nice effect that we have where the high lit day, the borders actually kind of peter out into the distance? Kind of fun. Kind of cool.
It looks great. It really does.
Anyway, so back to my real presentation. So thanks to Paul for his. He's described a lot. There are a few more new features that I shall be describing in version 18.2. First up, let's kick off with charting. So I'll start up the charting demo application. Now, Paul has already shown you the, comes up on another screen, obviously, has already shown you the Sunburst chart, which is kind of a fun chart to show. But I'm going to show you something new in the panes area of the charting. So we've always supported the ability to have panes with your charts. So here we have a chart with 3 panes, or 3-pane chart. So we have one axis down here, and we're just replicating the axis above for these other charts, whatever they may be. You can now add an individual title for each pane, and that title can also allow you to hide or show that particular pane and that particular chart. So as I hide those 2 upper charts, notice how the bottom chart grows to expand into the space that's been released. So it's a great way for your users to be able to see something as a whole, and then be able to, if you like, it's not quite drill down, I'll show you that in a minute, drill down if you like and see in more detail one of the panes of that overall chart. The other new thing is the grid pane layout. What we have here is the ability to put your panes in a grid rather than just stacked one on top of each other. So here we are, the grid layout. I'm trying not to show the scrolling and the cursor, the crosshairs. So we have, 2 charts above one another in this column, and then 3 charts in this particular column. So the panes are able to be put in a grid-like format. Here I don't have the, let's turn this particular pane off or on, but we do have headings, titles. I just talked about drill down, so let's quickly show that drill down. Basically, we're now supporting nested series templates. So this gives you a way of implementing a drill down chart. So here we have a chart, DevAV total sales, and you go, whoa, what's that all about? Let me drill down by clicking on that particular item. And I can drill down even further. I can, oh yeah, let's have a look at that particular chart. And we can, as we see, drill down. Notice also in the top left corner there, we have a breadcrumb type control. So I can, if I want to, go back just by clicking a particular breadcrumb in that control. So I've gone back to the total sales, or I can go back home and show the overall sales across all of the regions. Notice also, probably not to notice, but the charts are different. So you don't have to have all bar charts, horizontal bar charts, or whatever it happens to be. You can just define your charts as and when you like, or which particular ones you fancy, and all the rest of it. So while I start up the next one, one of the things I want to talk about is performance. Paul has already mentioned performance. I'm going to mention it again. What we try and do with every major release is to zoom in on some particular area where we could improve performance, see what we can do about performance. This particular chart here has a whole set of series of data, and you can turn them on and off. The amount of data is huge. I'll show you that in a minute. But notice how quickly the chart now displays. We have striven to improve performance with regard to rendering and also memory consumption with a large number of data points. The thing I want to show here is, yes, you can zoom in and out on this particular chart just by hovering over the chart itself, but we've also added the ability just to zoom in and out along a particular axis. So here I am, I'm just zooming in and out on the x-axis here, and I can do the same by zooming in and out on the y-axis. And notice how quickly, again, we do the whole GoToWebinar is slowing things down, but this is very, very fast. There's an awful lot of data. So let's go back to the original chart, and obviously I can still pan and zoom and other kind of things by clicking on the chart area itself. But here we now have the ability to say, I want to concentrate on making sure August is always visible. Let's really zoom in, and so on and so forth. So, so performance and zooming and panning on individual axes. Next thing I want to quickly show you is on the financial charting demo here is the ability for the crosshair cursor to display technical indicators. So here we have a very complicated looking financial chart, several panes here. What I'm going to do now is bring my mouse cursor in, and as I move the cursor around, there is a panel that's shown, and not only does the panel show immediate information about that particular crosshair line, it also shows you other information. So if you look there, we have not only the open, high, low, close values, we're also having some information about the Bollinger Bands, the average, lower and upper, which are not directly shown or part of the chart itself. In other words, we have the ability to add technical information to this tooltip or crosshair tip or whatever you like to call it. It's a technical indicator. So as I move around, you can certainly see things being displayed inside that panel which aren't actually part of the chart itself, if you like. So charting, that's great, some great new features there. Spreadsheets, don't have any real demos here. We have a new shape API, so you can create new shapes, connect group shapes, set the fill and outline settings for a shape, add text to a shape, and so on from a spreadsheet document. We've added sparkline rendering to a cell, so you can display sparklines, and those documents with sparklines can be, printed, exported to PDF. Another big feature that we try and do every time is improve our export to PDF, and so I'll be talking a bit about that in a moment. Rich text, you want to create some rich text inside a cell, have at it. Bold, underline, bigger, smaller, whatever, doesn't matter. We support it now within the spreadsheet. Let me jump over to the tree list, and or the multi-column tree view, as they call it. Here, a couple of fairly big major changes. The first one I'm going to show you is the Explorer demo here. What we've done is to link up our tree list and breadcrumb edit control together so that they interact with each other and share data and all the rest of it. This allows you, essentially, as we're showing here, to reproduce the Windows File Explorer UI or something along those lines. So here's my documents tree, and what we have here is a breadcrumb control, edit control, and here we have a tree list. So if I jump into, say, my GitHub folder here, notice on the breadcrumb I'm now going to GitHub. I can click on this and jump down even further. Here's going to be some bizarre stuff. Yes, it's Delphi, but you can use the breadcrumb control to navigate up and down your tree. So I've just clicked on the documents again, and I can click and jump back using the breadcrumb or using the tree or just drilling down individual items. So breadcrumb and the tree list now can talk to each other and do what you expect them to do. Let's jump over to this particular item now. What we have here is, it's a tree list which is, if you like, emulating some kind of options tree. And I know Paul is very, very happy about this because it's not a separate control. This is just a tree list control, but it does have this wonderful ability to show items with either checkboxes, so you can check many of them. So here, for example, I can check several or none or something. Radio.
I think it's a great use of a tree controller, Julian. Something that you wouldn't necessarily go to there straight and you think to go, oh, I need this style. Or why don't we use a tree view? So it's a great use, a great example of a use of a control like the tree that has got a lot of flexibility and so much wow factor in doing that.
Indeed. So it's you can also do that fab thing where, you know, I want to select everything or just certain things, and notice how that particular checkbox changes. Say yes, some are checked and some aren't, and so on and so forth. It's a fascinating way of looking at a tree list, or a different use of a tree list, I should say, rather than anything else. But we've added this ability to select with radio buttons and checkboxes within a tree list to, you know, essentially construct this kind of options page, if you like, or options tree. So performance, yes. Talking of tree list, last time we introduced DirectX support for the tree list, and now we've improved the rendering engine even more. So it's significantly faster. We've enhanced repainting, batch updates, large amounts of data, and all that kind of stuff. So the performance of the tree list is one of those areas where we've improved in 18.2. Next thing, I'm going to jump over to the word processing area. We're going to talk about the rich text edit control. The first thing, which I am not going to show you because I don't have enough knowledge, is we now support right to left languages. So Arabic, Hebrew, and what have you. So RTL support is now available inside the rich text edit. You can load and display, print, export to PDF, any document with right to left text inside it. As I say, I'm afraid I don't know any Hebrew or Arabic, and so I can't show you that. What I'd like to show you is a kind of first look at something that we've added, is the ability for us to render shapes. So here we have a couple of shape things. We do not at the present time enable you to create these shapes within your document, but what we do is to say we understand shapes. So if you've got a Word document that you've created with Microsoft Word and you've put some shapes in it, we can now read that document and render those shapes. So here we have some kind of flow diagram, and what we can do here is, if I jump over to the this is where I go wrong. Oh yeah, the format area. We have some abilities to modify the shapes which have been imported with that document. So let's change the outline to, let's say, a nice purple, and let's thicken the line. So we have some purple thick lines in our shapes here, in our flow diagram. So we understand about shapes. We can't create them yet. Fine. But the nice thing is you can print that. Let's go and do a print preview here. And from the print preview, I'm going to export to a PDF. So let's export to a PDF. And oh, it already exists. Let me replace it. And what I'm going to do then is, let's open it up just to show you that that export to PDF has also exported those shapes, including the shapes that I altered through the outlines and thicken and the color and so on and so forth. So shapes can be displayed, printed, and exported PDF. Paragraph borders, we can do that too now. You can load and save, display, print, export to PDF, paragraph borders. I haven't got any examples of that in this particular document. We've now added support for continuous section breaks. Remember that from Word. Paragraph options. We've added 2 new paragraph options. One is the widow and orphan lines control. So you can now prevent either the first paragraph in your page or the last paragraph in your page having a line which appears in the previous or next page. In other words, the widow or orphan problem. Or you can label a paragraph as being keep with next. In other words, this paragraph and the next paragraph has to appear on the same page. So that's now available with the rich text edit. Pivot grid, a whole bunch of changes there. Nothing particularly visual that I can show you. Performance, we've done a whole bunch of changes on the pivot grid performance area. I would definitely go, if you're using the pivot grid, go to our What's New site for 18.2 and have a read through for what's new in the pivot grid for, let me just bring that up, in fact. So here we are. Unbanned OLAP fields, the performance enhancements for things like custom types and summaries and what have you. Incel data editors, some changes there, and various miscellaneous enhancements. I love this HTML formatting. Wonderful. I like HTML. So lots of changes in that area. And with that, I think that's about it for me. So let me just bring up
the obligatory slide.
The obligatory slide, indeed. So that was the last thing that Paul showed us. And so, oh yeah, that was what I was doing. And thank you.
So looking through some of the questions, Julian, most of them have been answered anyway. There's a few
Brilliant.
that I'd like to just recap on, just so that people have got some idea as to what other people are asking, although I can't change my panel now. So one of the questions, which I said straight away when we did our rehearsal, I know for a fact that somebody's going to be sitting there typing this question in right now, and that was, for the scheduler control, do we have support for Outlook? So, and I've raised a question back whether Mark meant Outlook or Office 365. At the moment, no, the support is for Google or Gmail's calendar, Google at this stage, but obviously the best thing with any of those things, submit a ticket to the support center requesting a particular feature, because those things get raised priority when the planning's been done.
Exactly, and be aware that what we're trying to do these days is, as we're doing our planning for the next major release, we try and send out surveys to customers, and basically the surveys ask, in simple terms, what do you want? Obviously there's a bit more definition to it than that, but if we send out a survey about WinForms, then please, please, please fill out that survey. Tell us what you want, why you want it, how it's going to help you. And if you like, the more detail that we get about a particular feature, the more likely we're going to do it, because we'll go, duh, we should have done that ages ago, or something.
Absolutely. So other questions such as, do we support Windows XP with version 18.2? No.
No.
It requires the .NET Framework 4.5.2 or greater, and for obvious reasons. I mean, Microsoft stopped support back in 2014. So
I did do a blog post, oh my God, about 3 months ago, which detailed what we were going to do about supporting older runtimes, older platforms, older operating systems. Please go find that blog post, because it details what we're going to do and, you know, which version of Visual Studio we're going to be supporting from now on. So be aware, you know, Windows XP, no, it's no longer supported at all. But, you know, be aware that, you know, some of the older .NET frameworks, no, don't support those anymore.
Mark just asked about the surveys that you just mentioned. I would like to just point out that because of the new privacy laws that have been introduced across the globe, we really need you to opt into newsletters and other things. It's basically...
A very good point. A lot of people have basically said, I no longer want to be notified of anything from DevExpress, which is fine. I'm not arguing about that. But if you do that, you will not get a survey. So, maybe in the next month, allow notifications and then switch it off again so you get the survey. We've got to decide within the next month before the new year what we're going to be doing for version 19.1, which will appear in May.
Yes,
He says.
Really? We're going to go there already?
The teams are throwing up their hands in horror going, May? What do you mean, May?
We've only just released this one. Do you know, Julian, if the... Oh, no, we've got an answer already. So Theory just asked if the API, if paragraph borders can be accessed with the API, and unfortunately not in 18.2. So I was just about to try and look that up, but that's been done. Mark, there is no webinar for what's new in XAF at this point. We checked the blog posts, and one of the team may put something up as a YouTube video, but we don't actually have a scheduled webinar as such in this launch week. Other questions? That's pretty much everything that's been asked. As always, Julian will follow up with a bit of a blog post on questions that may not have been answered if they're a little bit too technical in nature. There's me throwing Julian under the bus again.
That's Julian spelt P-A-U-L.
Oh, that's always fun. People, please just keep posting requests, provide feedback, Twitter, email. You've got our email addresses there. The teams love to hear. We love to see what's been done with the products, and WinForms is not going anywhere fast. It is here to stay, and we love working with it. So a big kudos and thank you to the teams for all the efforts they put in as well, and thank you so much to our customers for trusting in our products and supporting us. Yep. We might hand back to Amanda.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Amanda.
All right, everybody. Like I mentioned before, today's webinar will be made available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel. I just posted the link to our channel in the chat box. You will also get a follow-up email with a link to this webinar recording sometime next week. And we do have more 18.2 webinars coming up this week. You can register at devexpress.com/webinars. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Julian and Paul. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.